the heart and soul behind every business. Stories. Welcome to Business Story of the Week, hosted by me, Joshua Laurie. From setbacks to comebacks, from tragedies to triumphs, we inspire entrepreneurs through conversations that matter. Witness the magic that turns dreams into reality. Whether it's your career, business, or life, your success is always one story away. This is Business Story of the Week. And of course, I am your host, Joshua. On every episode, and every day, and every week, and every day we ask a question. In every episode, we ask a question. The question for today is luxury... Okay, let's revise that. What if luxury isn't just about opulence? What if luxury is also about the art of transformation? Well, that is exactly the message and the question that Elizabeth, our guest for today, will be answering. She is the perfect guest to answer this question for us today. Elizabeth is a luxury business coach, speaker, and the founder of the Diversity in Luxury Awards. She is a renowned celebrity cake maker to the stars that has appeared on BBC One, The Good Food Channel, Channel 4, BBC Radio, and The Sky Living as a luxury expert. Author of the best-selling artisan cake book, Opulentia, Elizabeth is currently working on her latest book, The Luxpreneur. I love it. She travels the world speaking about luxury entrepreneurs and why business owners should consider selling in the luxury sector. And that is a very, very fascinating background. And of course, Elizabeth, I am quite excited to talk about your insights, your experience. Thank you for coming on the show. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm very well, thank you. We have really great weather here in London at the moment, which is unusual, and we're all enjoying watching the Olympics.
Oh goodness! I mean, I love tuning into the Olympics myself. Quite relaxing also sometimes. Just watching all the stuff around there. But Elizabeth, I am very glad to have you on here. You have a prolific career. You are a leading voice, I believe, in the industry, of course. But before we get into it, Elizabeth, what was the young Elizabeth Solaru like? What would the young Elizabeth Solaru think about the idea of luxury and entrepreneurship, or the luxpreneurship, so to speak? The book that you're about to write. Did the young Elizabeth know she was going to get into artisan baking, or let alone get into the luxury sector?
No, the young
Wow.
Elizabeth, most certainly not, because she was a lovely British African girl whose parents prioritized education and
Mhm.
whose peers and teachers actually thought would become a professor. So I was meant
Wow.
to do medicine, I was meant to be a professor, and I was very happy doing that. It's
Mhm.
just that when I was about 11 or 12, a friend brought in a book about cake making, and I couldn't
Mhm.
believe ingredients so simple will make something so delicious. So took the book home. In an African household in those days, your oven was like storage. And
Uh-huh.
I turned on the oven and I baked my first cake and I
Uh-huh.
fell in love. But had to put
Mhm.
that to one side. I had to focus on my studies. So I did go to university. I did do multiple degrees in microbiology and
Mhm.
parasitology. I became a scientist. Again, I was on course to become a professor, but something happened after years working as a scientist,
Oh.
a few career changes. I ended up being a cake maker, and that started my journey into luxury.
It's almost like a full circle, right? Like
Yeah.
you got into baking, you fell in love, and then you tried to be a scientist. You tried to get into different career path in your life, and it just didn't pan out. And then you went back to baking. But I feel like the funny part, not funny, but like the kind of like a curveball moment there is like, then you got into luxury. What? Like, wow, how did that happen? How did that turn out to be? But first, Elizabeth, talking a little bit about your baking, artisan bakery, you fell in love with it. What I always love to say, or uh, what I've been told about baking is, there's cooking and then there's baking. Um, baking is more of like a science. Baking is like chemistry because you're using the same ingredients for every cake, everything, all of that, the pastries, same ingredients, but you come up with very, very different results. So it's really like chemistry. Did that feel like, of course, with your tenure and trying to be, you got into your education, you tried to follow that path as well. Did that kind of science side of you was always alive in you? But first off, the question is, why did you fall in love with baking? What was the aspect of it that you felt was attracted you to come back? And how did you start using baking to transition into luxury? Very
Right.
interesting.
That's a really great question.
Hmm.
So getting back into baking, it was 2008, and I was working as a headhunter in the city, recruiting chief executives and finance directors and C-suite level executives.
Hmm.
And the job was very stressful, so I started baking to relax. I fell back in love with baking, and then I thought, oh, this is lovely. So as a hobby, I then saved all my money and I started traveling outside of the UK to
Okay.
learn more about patisserie and decorating. And I just fell in love. And then I created a website. And I remember, I never forget this, created a website of all the things I had, the cakes I'd done and decorated. And then
Hmm.
somebody saw it and somebody went, oh my God, that's a high end product. That is a luxury product. I had
Hmm.
never heard of high end before then. And then I kind of thought, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then 2008, the recession happened, and I was let go from my job then. And I thought, if I don't do it now, I'll never do it. So I decided to start cake making, and I set up my business. And I use the same principles that we'd been trained as a headhunter, which was to make 100 calls a week. So we made
Okay.
100 cold calls a week to try and get into the diaries of chief execs. So I did exactly the same thing. I was making the calls. I took the yellow pages, which is a phone book about this thick,
Hmm.
and I made
Hmm.
so many calls. And one of the first calls I made was to, I didn't know at the time, was to a wedding party, a party planning business
Right.
that was actually owned by the cousin to the late Queen Elizabeth. I did not know
Wow.
at the time. So
Wow.
somebody picked up the phone. I introduced myself, told them what I did, and she said, "Do you make cupcakes?" I'm like, "Yes." This was many, many years ago when cupcakes
Wow.
were all the rage, about 20 years
Hmm.
ago. I said,
Hmm.
"Yes." And I said, "By the way, I will be coming to your area in the next 2 days. Can I drop off
Hmm.
some samples?" And I did
Hmm.
exactly that. And before I got home,
Oh,
I got a phone call saying Lady Elizabeth wants to see you. So I had to
wow.
head back. I saw her. She loved the look, she loved how it tasted. And I got my first luxury high end commission from her. So
Fantastic.
that was my entry into serving luxury
Wow.
clients. Yeah.
Fantastic. What a fascinating story. I
Thank
love that story. Again, it brought you full circle and then it transitioned you into the luxury market, the luxury cake maker, by the way, Elizabeth Solaru herself, the luxury cake maker. But Elizabeth, how must that have felt? Like you took on like a journey, it didn't pan out, you went back to what you love, and how validating must it have felt to finally find that boom, not only did you use your previous experience to put yourself out there, but also you stuck to what you love. You stuck to what you wanted to do. How validating must it have felt when finally, wow, Elizabeth, the queen herself, like to to validate that and approve all that. Talk to us about how that felt.
It felt great on the one hand, but there was another side of me that was slightly
Oh.
terrified. And I
Mhm.
was terrified because I need to deliver. Because one thing about baking or cooking or whatever is consistency, and
Yes.
you're only as good as the last product that you produce. And because
Yes.
everything we do is bespoke,
Mhm.
no two designs are the same, etc., etc., there's
Mhm.
always an element that terrifies you, that you think, oh my God, what if this is the time I screw up? What is it? Yeah. So that keeps
Oh
you
wow.
on your toes. So it's validating for people to say they see something very special in what you do. But on the
Yes.
other hand, you have that added pressure of
Mhm.
delivering and then bettering yourself every time, so that you're only as good. I say you're only as good as your last cake. So it needs to be better. And
Mhm.
yes, I failed, or rather, I know I failed, but sometimes the client don't know you failed because
Mhm.
the vision, what you deliver, might not quite be the vision that you had.
Mhm.
But almost every time, clients are happy. They rave about what you've done, and that is
I
very
see.
validating. So for me, the client saying, "Oh my God, that was incredible! Everyone loved it," or just,
Mhm.
or when I go back and there are just crumbs, that
I
for
see.
me is validated. So that's how I get
Oh.
my validation. Um,
From there, when you finish up the entire plate, basically nothing comes back. It
yeah.
means it's good. It means you're doing something right. But I mean, royal validation is one thing, but also the validation of that hard work. I mean, how many cupcakes did you have to make? The amount of work that must have been put behind that is staggering. But also the sense of fulfillment must have been just as valuable as well. Of course, now you are a experienced luxury cake maker, but you now also are a business coach, a strategist. You are also teaching the same success in business when it comes to the luxury market. How does your experience as a luxury cake maker compare to your role now as a business coach and a strategist?
That's a brilliant question,
Mhm.
and I love it, and I'll tell you why. As a cake maker, the barrier to entry is very low. So anybody with an oven can make cakes.
Of course.
That's a given.
Hmm.
In luxury, the barrier to entry is usually high. So people
Uh-huh.
imagine that, to produce certain products or services, you've got to
Uh-huh.
have swanky offices, you've got to have this. So people imagine all that.
Hmm.
And when you read luxury books, most of them are written by luxury professors who are
Yes.
experts.
Yes.
I say to people, I'm not an expert, I just know what works. So,
Hmm.
and the one question that people ask me is, how do I find rich clients? How do I find high end clients? And I often say, that's the wrong question to ask. The question you should ask yourself is, what is the most value that I've ever delivered? So have I created, so for example, as a cake maker,
Uh-huh.
people are used to getting a cake for $10, $20, maybe $100. Maybe
Hmm.
if you want to splurge $300, $400.
Yeah. Hmm.
But what if I tell you you can create $1 million cake? The mind boggles and you think, is
Yes.
that possible? But I say to you, the same ingredients, eggs, butter, sugar, milk, flour,
Yes.
can produce your $1 million cake.
Fascinating.
So this is where value comes in. And this
Hmm.
is where I also say to people,
Hmm.
you don't look at luxury clients
Hmm.
as a monolith, as one type.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
not just about, it's not just the fact that they have money.
Hmm.
Their buying behavior and the way they enjoy luxury is completely
Hmm.
different. So
Hmm.
I came up with 8 archetypes of the
Wow.
different types of luxury clients in my
Wow.
book, Luxpreneur. I
Uh-huh.
also came up with you as a luxury seller. So whatever you do,
Okay.
whatever you're selling, you're a seller. So
Uh-huh.
as a luxury seller, I came up with 9 different archetypes.
Oh,
So that
interesting.
way you can match who you are to your ideal client, if that makes
Hmm.
sense. So
Yes,
I
of
look
course.
I look at what I sell from a client perspective.
I see.
Many people think, oh, I make amazing jewelry. I
Hmm.
want to sell it to rich people who can afford it. But
Hmm.
that is not exactly the way to look at it. You should look
I
at,
see.
okay, the jewelry that I produce is going to
Hmm.
be liked by a certain type of client. So once you know who that type is, you can then hone in on their passions, on what they
Hmm.
like, how they buy. And that way you're niching down, because I say to people, there are riches in the niches. You need, with luxury, you need to niche down. So
Mm-hmm.
even if you're only getting a handful of clients,
Mm-hmm.
what you want is for them to come back again and again and again. So to give you an example,
Uh-huh.
recent studies show that
Please.
depending on the type of luxury client, so
Right.
let's one type is an aspirational. So
Okay.
aspirational, aspires to, say you might aspire to be like Kim Kardashian.
Yes.
That type of client will buy from you. However, there's another type of client that I
Mm-hmm.
call the only the best. That type of client, the only the best, is worth 230 times more
Mm-hmm.
than an aspirational client. So you need
Mm-hmm.
to ask yourself, do I just want to sell one item and get 230 times more? Or do I want to sell to 230 people the
Mm-hmm.
same item?
For sure.
So these are, practical strategies based on my practical experience of selling to clients like this for the last 20 years or so.
Fascinating. And it's a fascinating perspective as well. And who knows that it all started with cake? It all started with baking. Who knew it would lead to that? I love that too because it goes back to what we talked about earlier that it's chemistry. It's same ingredients, but the value you're putting in it is a different story, and that's how you create a proper luxury brand, a proper luxury product, so to speak. What fascinated me the most is when you say riches are in the niches. It's a very common term in business, right? In
Yeah.
entrepreneurship, but it fascinated me because it feels like luxury market is already a niche. But you're telling the audience right now is that there is a niche within that richness as well, and you need to niche further down. I think that is a fascinating perspective that isn't really talked about. It's a different perspective that it's not a common perspective that we encounter every day. I am very, very fascinated. And of course, I hope our audience and listeners are also fascinated with your book, The Luxpreneur, where you talk about all of this. Um, Elizabeth, here's my next question. My next question is if building a luxury brand, of course, what you talk about in your book, Luxpreneur, and the archetypes of you as a seller and the archetypes of the market that you get into, if building a luxury brand was like creating a perfect cake, what would be the essential ingredients to create a successful luxury brand?
Oh, that's a lovely question. And I address that in the book, but I use, initially I was going to use layers of a cake, but then
Okay.
I decided to use pillars.
Oh,
So imagine a table, four legs, and then
yes.
then you have a central pillar. So that
Yes.
makes the five pillars.
Hmm.
And I base my five pillars, and off the top of my head, I'll tell you a few of them.
Please.
One is storytelling. So how you tell the story of your luxury brand. So
Hmm.
you can't just say, "Hey, I'm Elizabeth and I make cakes. Aren't I wonderful?"
Hmm.
You need to, because what you want to do with your storytelling is grab people's emotions. So, for example, if I
Hmm.
say to you the word Chanel, right?
Hmm.
Right,
Luxury brand.
Chanel. So
Yes.
that was founded by a lady called Coco Chanel.
Yes, Coco Chanel.
Coco
Hmm.
Chanel, and then you might think of the perfume number five.
Yes. Yes.
Then exactly, then you might think of, when you look at the logo, black and white.
Black and white. The C, the
The
letter C,
C's, exactly,
very
the two
distinct.
C's,
Hmm. Hmm.
exactly. So my point is, when you think of all that, already there's a story forming in your head.
Yes.
So her story was, she was an orphan, she learned how to sew in an orphanage, and
Hmm.
then she set up Chanel. That's the
Hmm.
basic story. But when you
Hmm.
talk about storytelling that pulls on the emotions, you talk about her father dropping her off at the orphanage, you talk about her being a waif, you talk about her learning how to sew, then you talk about her choosing certain fabrics,
Yes.
her deciding that she wasn't going to do the normal frou-frou stuff that
Right.
designers were doing then. She wanted to be different. And then
Yes.
you talk about the fact that she had the relationships with these powerful men who funded her business. So
Wow.
a story begins to build. Then you
That's
also
it.
look at even the perfume number five. According to folklore, it was the fifth. She asked somebody to create a perfume for her, and
Hmm.
number five was a fifth bottle that she smelled. and she decided to name her perfume number 5. So
Mm-hmm.
again, storytelling. So people who absolutely love the brand, these are the stories that draw them to the brand, and
Mm-hmm.
then they look at the product.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just a matter of just buying the product, is and it's also the so the second thing that comes in is
Mm-hmm.
also the price.
Mm-hmm.
So luxury, by its very nature, tends to be expensive,
Of
but
course.
not
Uh-huh.
but not everything expensive is luxury.
Ah, of course.
Yeah.
That is such an important perspective, very important insight, very important factor. Why, Elizabeth?
Okay.
Why?
So you can have, I mean, I can use, I might not mention the brands, but I can give
Mm-hmm.
you a few examples. So there's a brand.
Uh-huh.
I
Uh-huh.
call them the meme brand. They didn't exactly
Okay.
start out like that, but they tend to generate a lot of memes, and they do avant-garde things,
Mm-hmm.
and their things are very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
But their things, in my mind, not luxury, to be honest.
Okay.
And then you
Okay.
have another brand. I've mentioned I mentioned a brand earlier. You have
Mm-hmm.
another brand where, if you look at their couture, if you look at everything that goes into what they do,
Mm-hmm.
even when you look at what they do, you're thinking your mindset shifts from, oh my god, that's expensive, to, oh my god, how can I afford that?
Right.
That is
Right.
what luxury does to you. Luxury makes you go, as in the luxury that resonates with you. You're no
Mm-hmm.
longer thinking, oh my God, that's way too expensive. And no matter how rich I am, I'll never ever pay that much. It will shift your mind to, oh wow, how can I get that?
That's it.
How can I
That's
afford
it.
that? How many how many hours, how many shifts do I have to do to get that
Mm-hmm.
bag, to get the handbag?
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
so that is what luxury that resonates. That's what it
Mm-hmm.
does to you,
Yes.
if that
Exactly.
makes sense. So, and that
Mm-hmm.
is why it's important to
Mm-hmm.
find the right client for your
That's it.
business, because
Mm-hmm.
when what you do resonates with them, it's no
Exactly.
longer a question of, oh my God, that's expensive. It's, oh my God, it's worth it.
That's it.
So
Fascinating.
those are some of the pillars. So I've mentioned storytelling, I've mentioned price.
Yes.
There's business model, so that it
Of
depends on the
course.
business model you choose to adopt. So, for
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
example, I say to people, when you look at a luxury brand, you need to look at no matter what they do or produce, they
Mm-hmm.
normally have, especially for your fashion brands, they normally have 3 levels of product.
Yes.
So level one are the lipsticks, the perfumes, expensive, but you can still afford them if you don't
Mm-hmm.
eat for a week, for example.
Of
Then
course.
you have the next level up. If you don't eat for a year, you might be able to afford, you
Maybe.
know, a
Mm-hmm.
pair of shoes or clothes or bags or whatever.
Okay.
And then you have the next level up, which is couture, and
Uh-huh.
which is what I call, you need all your generational wealth to
Uh-huh.
afford that.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the 3 levels.
Mm-hmm.
However, the way they advertise and promote, etc., they
Mm-hmm.
use the lipsticks and the perfumes to fund the high-end couture.
Mm, I
So
see.
look at it that way. So when you're creating products as a luxury brand yourself, you need to
Mm-hmm.
think, can I create $1 million cake? And I know maybe only one person in the world will buy that, but is that
Right.
possible? Can I create
Mm-hmm.
100 grand cake? And
Mm-hmm.
can I create £1,000 cake? So that's the way to look at your business. So again, you've
Fascinating.
got business model
Of
as
course.
another leg of that table.
I love that. I love that you mentioned all of it in such a clear manner as well. And again, you're breaking it down for all of us, the luxury market, and how to see it in a different perspective, or see it in a way where we can adjust our business to it. Because I bet that the most common idea when it comes to luxury business market or luxury business or anything is like, just get into luxury, and the prices, jack up your price, and then people are just going to buy it. That's it, that's luxury. But you've shown us that first. I feel I love the aspect of storytelling, because people want to be in that story, right? People want to be part of that story, and if they resonate, that emotion resonates with them, they're going to want to buy that. So you're not really just selling the product, you're creating a story behind it. So if you're able to create that story, then you can start pricing it properly. But it's not just about the price, because now you have to model it accordingly to the people, or the model, or to the market that you are selling it to. It's fascinating. Thank you so much for that insight, Elizabeth. But of course, now it's you are, of course, writing this or talking about all of this in your book, The Luxpreneur. You also have your best-selling artisan cake, Opulentia. Now that we begin to start wrapping this up, of course, you're traveling the world as a world speaking entrepreneurship, and why business owners, again, should consider the luxury sector. But also, Elizabeth, I understand that your principles of luxury, you also talk about social justice, economic inclusion in your work. How does the principles of luxury you feel intersect with social justice and economic inclusion? This is part of your message as well. How do you balance that? How do you include that? And why is it such an important message for you?
I think that's a brilliant question to wrap this up with,
Mhm.
because um, people think luxury, exclusivity, rarity, there's a
Yes.
barrier to
Oh, yeah,
entry,
yeah. Hmm.
it's gatekeeped,
Outside,
and
yes.
all that is true. All that is true.
Hmm.
However, there's another aspect that people don't consider, and that is the artisans, or the people that actually feed and make all those luxury products.
Hmm.
They are not luxury themselves. I'm not luxury myself, if
Hmm.
that makes sense. I don't live a swanky, opulent, yacht filled life, private jet
Hmm.
life, but I make products for people like that who do. So this is where so this is my point about economic empowerment and inclusion. And
Hmm.
sometimes the worst barrier is in our minds, because you kind of think,
Right.
oh, would people like that want to buy from me? Or how do I even
Yes.
access people like that? Or how
Yes.
do I even, so those again, but I would say to people, it's easy,
Hmm.
you can easily, the same energy required to sell a $10 cake is the same energy required to sell $1,000 cake,
Of course.
or
Of
a
course.
$10,000 cake, to be honest with you. It's just a matter of your product resonating with those people, because at the
Yes.
end of the day, and your product giving them the value. So for me, that's why I created diversity in luxury awards,
Yes.
because I'll give you an example that sets
Yes.
this beautifully.
Hmm.
There's a needlecraft school in India that does
Hmm.
embroidery for
Right.
Hermes and Dior. Nobody has heard of that needlecraft school.
Okay.
And this needlecraft school was set up to empower women, but
Mm.
they actually collaborate with these big brands and nobody knows about them. So for me, this is why I set up Diversity in Luxury, because I want to highlight and showcase
I love that.
schools like that that do
Yes.
amazing stuff. On
Hmm.
the flip side, I'll give you an example. I use the
Hmm.
example of Chanel.
Hmm.
People don't know that Chanel, they
Hmm.
have a foundation that educates girls around the world. And when the last chief exec was appointed in 2022, the first thing she did as a CEO was increase the fund from 20 million euros a year to
Hmm.
100 million euros. Now,
Hmm.
I've recruited chief execs. They almost never do that. Never. Because the first thing you want to do as a chief exec is get more money in. You want to sell more stuff. But she is literally giving money away.
Hmm.
And for me, that tells me that Chanel are, they're not just about selling, they're about having a social and economic conscience as well.
Hmm.
Because for a
Yes.
company to give away 100 million euros a year for the education of girls,
Hmm.
so these are some of the people that we shortlisted for the
Wow.
awards. So for
Fascinating.
me, it's, so this is why I feel
Absolutely.
that yes, luxury can coexist
Yes.
with economic and social empowerment. And even
I love
last week, I was reading, you've just
it.
reminded me, I was
Hmm. Hmm.
reading that Chanel invited refugees into their
Oh, wow.
space,
Wow.
and they were teaching them technical skills.
Hmm.
So technical skills, coding, blah, blah, blah. So literally, so that's my
Hmm.
point, that people are doing a lot in luxury. There's a
Hmm.
lot going on in terms of inclusion, etc., etc. But they're very bad about talking about it. And
Right.
this is where people like me come in to highlight and showcase what people are doing.
I love it. Of course, again, the name is Diversity in Luxury Awards. You are shining a spotlight and highlighting the messages and the organizations that are putting these, it needs more attention. They
Yeah.
need to gain more attention. These stories need to be told. So we change our perspective when it comes to luxury brands. It's almost, you showed us flip sides of it. Like one is using the, the, the power or the economic power from working with a luxury brand to help the local community, and a luxury brand itself helping the local community directly. These efforts need to be made known. These efforts need to be put out there because these are wonderful stories, remarkable stories, just as remarkable as yours. Of course, your story, Elizabeth, is of course like starting an artisan baker to a luxury cake maker and to now teaching this same and shining the spotlight on remarkable luxury brands. Of course, the website is luxurybusinessemporium.com if you want to find out more. The book, the best-selling art book, is Opulentia. I love that. We need to highlight there. And of course, the new book, The Luxpreneur, is out there. Where can we find it?
Um,
Elizabeth, where else can we connect with you?
it's coming out in
Oh, it's
September.
coming out. All
It's
right.
coming
Okay.
out in September. It'll be on Amazon, definitely on
All right.
Amazon, and it's
Mhm.
called The Luxpreneur. And you can easily, again, it'll be on the Luxury Business Emporium website as well.
Fantastic. And to all our audience and listeners, of course, check the website out. Go wait. Of course, the book is coming out. Very, very exciting. Elizabeth, where else can we connect with you? Where else can we learn more?
Best place to connect with me is on LinkedIn because
Mhm.
all you do is go, type in my name, Elizabeth Solaru, and you can connect with me and you can follow what I write about, what I do. So I write stories, I give a luxury business news, and I also share principles around luxury business.
I love that. I love that. And of course, I am sending you a connect request right now. I am also inviting our audience and listeners to do the same. I love it. I love the story. I love the platform that you have given everyone else. Elizabeth, thank you so much for being on this show today. Thank you for sharing all of this. Thank you for sharing your story, your perspective, and your rich, rich insight. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I have thoroughly enjoyed myself. This has been amazing. Thank you, Joshua. Really, really appreciate you. Thank you.
Fantastic. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed this. And to all our audience and listeners out there, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode as well. Thank you for watching this one, and we'll see you on the next. Bye bye.
All right, so here's the thing. We try to get a little bit better every day, but we can't do it without you. So if you like the video, make sure to like and subscribe below. And if you have any comments, just leave them in the space under.